Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. This is the meeting of the April 4th meeting of the New Ulm Safety Commission. We start at 5 p.m. tonight. I will call the meeting to order. We have annual organization and new members. Let's do the new members first. Everybody knows who they are. Larry, you're one of the new members.
Yes.
Will you introduce yourself, please?
My name is Larry Hunstead. I have lived in New Ulm for 50 plus years. Worked at 3M for 35 years. And we moved into town about, maybe a little less than 2 years. And we live out on the Cottonwood townhomes out there. And coming into town, we felt that it was probably time to maybe give back a little bit and try and help out where we could, volunteer where we could. So both Sue and I have been doing that. She is on the Human Rights Commission, and I have volunteered for the Safety Commission here, and looking forward to it.
Okay. Thank you. Welcome aboard. We got another one down on this side.
I'm Joanne Brennan. I've lived in New Ulm now for about 45 years. I've done numerous things in town, from teaching to a merchandiser. I have rental property, etc. I've served on this board once before, a number of years ago.
Welcome to the board again. Okay, our purpose, City Code Chapter number 3, Boards and Commissions. We are under section 3.23, I believe it is, Safety Commission. There's a copy attached to all our stuff. Our scheduled meeting will be changing next month. It will be coming the second Thursday of the month in May. It will be changed. So everybody duly note on your paperwork that it will be changed to May. At the month of May, it will be changed. We have our 5 members present. So our next step.
Mr. Chair, do you want to change it to the second Thursday?
Well, I thought
I maybe made a mistake here.
Oh.
I didn't mean to change it. I guess we just went off some old agendas. So you can continue on the first Thursday if you so choose.
is the hall available?
Yes.
Okay, well then we'll change it back to the first
Yes. My
Thursday.
mistake.
That's why I got my calendar straight. Now I got to get it back in my calendar.
And you can entertain, a different time or day as long as it fits into the schedule. Yes.
Is everybody agreeable to that? Going back?
Make a motion, we leave it as is.
Make a motion, leave it as is. Do I hear a second?
Second.
I hear a second. Any further discussion? Any further discussion? All those in favor of leaving the meeting date as to the first Thursday of the month, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Okay. We have the election of officers next. I am the president or chairman. We have our vice chair, Charlie Mitchell, is no longer with us. We have to thank him for his service that he did to the commission. And our secretary is Don Hellendrung. So now it's up to you people if you want to change officers, what you want to do. Let's hear what you want. Boy, it got quiet all of a sudden.
Mr. Chair, I'll maintain the secretary position. If
I'll
there's
maintain the
any-
chairman if you guys will want me
Any
to do that.
objection?
But we do need a vice chairman in case I happen to go fishing sometime. Anybody want to volunteer for vice chairman? If not, do I have, Steve, can I appoint somebody if I have to, or?
I believe
We
the
do this.
proper order would be a motion and a second
would be a motion,
to
yes.
nominate, yes.
Smiling over there. Don, give it to him. He's smiling in the corner.
That's what I get for being a positive guy.
Somebody make a motion.
I make a motion, we nominate Joanne Brennan.
I would rescind that nomination strictly because it's been quite a while since I've been on here. Let me get my feet wet first.
Okay. Do we have another nomination? Come on, guys. I'm sitting up here twiddling my thumbs.
I guess I will if nobody else gonna step up for it. No.
All right. Somebody make a motion to have him as our vice chair.
I'll make that motion.
Do I hear a second?
I second it.
Any further discussion? Any further discussion? All those in favor of having him as our vice chairman signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Get the right one done. Okay. The old business that we have that I know of right now is what we did way back in October. We recommended. Steve, is that where I'm supposed?
Secretary's report, Mr. Chair, would be the minutes from November 2nd, 2017.
November 2nd, okay.
Want me to read them?
Yeah, why don't you read them?
Okay, minutes from the October meeting was read by the secretary and accepted as read. The October recommendation to authorize an application to fund the installation of a rectangular rapid flashing beacon on Broadway at 4th South is needed clarification as to which grant to request. Following a short discussion, a motion to request authorization for the SRTS grant application in 2018. Motion was made by Don Hellendrung, second by Charlie Mitchell, approved by members present. Second on the commission was presented with the results of the Heart of New Ulm curb extension pilot program at 5th North Street and Washington Street by Cindy Winters, project manager, Heart of New Ulm. Project was conducted on September 29th through the 25th through the 29th of 2017. The last comments that were that when 5th North Street is updated, those bump outs would be installed. City engineer Steve Kohler stated it would be better to address when Washington Street is updated. Report accepted. And there's another section. Under new business, the city engineer Steve Kohler and assistant engineer Joe Stedman presented to the commission the capital improvement plan for 2018 as required by the City of New Ulm Complete Street Policy. The report contained 5 sections covering the 2018 utility, street, and alley improvements, 2018 MSAS improvement project, 2018 surface reconstruction and overlay project by city forces, the 2017/2018 Minnesota MnDOT Highway 1568 landscape project, the 2017-2018 MnDOT Highway 1415 Gateway project. Motion was made by Charlie Mitchell to accept this list to recommend this list to the city council with an approval. Second by Don Hellendrung. Motion approved by members present. And then our next meeting was scheduled for December, but it is now this meeting. That's all.
All right. Do I hear a motion to accept the secretary's report?
So move.
I have a motion to accept the secretary's report as presented. Do I hear a second?
Second that.
I hear a second. Any further discussion? Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Okay. First thing on the new business is consider recommending the installation of a W1115 rectangular traffic warning signs on 18 South Street on both sides of the creek, both sides of the creek culvert, crossing west of State Street. Safety Commission detoured from the MNUTCD guidance. Proposed signage and two photos were attached. I believe this is on the road going into Shell Brewery, correct, Steve?
Yes, Mr. Chair, having a problem with this agenda. I don't know what a safety commission detour form is. I guess I have to proofread these a little harder. This was brought to the commission at the request of Tom Schmitz, the Park and Recreation Director, who had ferried it through the Recreation Commission. So maybe Tom could speak to this. It has to do with bikes crossing through South Park, and there's some narrow roadways, and he'd like to put some signs up to help warn of that particular traffic.
Okay, Tom?
Thank you, Chair Fritchie and members of the commission and Engineer Kaler. That's correct, that this request has already gone through the Park and Recreation Commission and is forwarded now to you in hopes that you will forward on a recommendation to the City Council to install cautionary signs in South Park on 18th South Street. I think if you traveled that area, you understand that the normal roadway is about 40 feet in width, and it narrows down at what people sometimes refer to as South Park Creek. And the culvert underneath 18th South there, the road narrows to about 24 feet. There's been some improvements to South Park over the years. Just this past year, we saw replacement and renovation of the disc golf course. Also, the playground has been replaced over the past 5 years, improvements to the ball field in South Park, and then, of course, eradication of buckthorn and some other exotic species have opened up the valley of the creek, and the park has seen significant more use by the public. And so we're seeing people, pedestrians and bicyclists, traverse through that area on 18th South Street. Also, it's on the Circle bike route. So I'm requesting that you forward this on to the City Council to install pedestrian, bicycle cautionary signs, one eastbound and one westbound there on 18th South Street. You can see in your packet, I think the recommended sign has a bicycle above it, above a pedestrian, and then you have photos in your packet of that narrow section of the road. So I'm happy to try to answer any questions you may have, but the Park and Recreation Commission and Department view this as a safety concern for motor vehicles squeezed into a narrow area with pedestrians and bicyclists.
Mr. Chair, I may add that we've included the guidance from the Uniform Traffic Control Manual. It's page 2C-28. I've kind of circled the guidance in the lower right-hand corner. It says vehicular traffic warning signs should be used only at locations where the road user's sight distance is restricted or the condition, activity, or entering traffic would be unexpected. So I would think that those conditions are met at that location. So it would be appropriate if you recommended this signage installation.
I have one other question. I read through that. It does say that it would have to be removed. That does not have to be continuously, because you won't have bicycle traffic and that during the winter months.
Mr. Chair, I would agree with that. It says it should be removed. It
Should
doesn't
be.
say it shall be, so we'll leave that up to Mr. Curry, I guess.
We'd still have
Ordered in.
pedestrian traffic, though, I would expect, so it still would be apply. That's only if it's not.
Right, I wouldn't anticipate taking them down in the wintertime.
Okay. Wanted to make sure that it was understood.
Any more questions for Tom? I go by first names because I know them all by first name. It's bad on my part, but I know them all and I go by first name. Any further questions for Tom or Steve? Any further questions? Okay, what's our recommendation?
Mr. Chair, I make a recommendation that we forward this to the city council for installation. It makes complete, perfect sense. There was no issue about that.
I'll second it.
I have a second. I have a motion and a second to approve the installation of the requested signs. Any further discussion? Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Mr. Kaler, will you take care of that for us, please?
Yes, Mr. Chair, we'll have it on the April 17th City Council agenda, hopefully, as a recommendation to install from the Safety Commission.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for presenting to us. All right, number 2, consider recommending support of installation of longitude or diagonal markings at several crosswalks locations as presented by the city by Cindy Winters, the project manager for the Heart of New Ulm. Cindy, you want to give a little discussion on this? Enlighten us, please, a little bit more.
Cindy Winters, Heart of New Ulm Project, and I help facilitate the Safe Routes to School program and the plan. And this recommendation was contained in the Safe Routes to School plan that we have, that we're working off of. And the recommendation was to enhance some of the crosswalks in the school zones, to paint them with ladder type crosswalk painting rather than the traditional 2-line crosswalk painting system, because the ladder type has a higher visibility, is seen farther away, and it helps to increase the yielding behavior for drivers. So it makes it safer for the kids to cross the street to get to school. And the areas that were identified on your maps, there's 15 of them that are top choices. And I've listed each of them individually. So 10th Street, South 10th Street and South Payne Street is an area where a lot of children cross to get to the elementary school and to St. Paul's School, as well as potentially Newax as well. And these were chosen by the school administrators and the school resource officer when they looked at which intersections were used the most and which crossings were used the most for kids to get to school. And this one is at the high school, so it's an enhanced crosswalk painted on Oak Street and across Highland Street on the west side of the street. And this one is at Center and Garden Street, and this pertains to all the schools. So an enhanced crosswalk across Center Street on the west side, and then across Garden Street on the south side. Which there really are no north and south streets in New Ulm, but I'm getting as close as I can. And this one's for the middle school. So painting across Payne Street on both sides of South 4th Street. And that's to get to Jefferson and the middle school campus. And Newax would like an enhanced crosswalk painted across North 5th Street on Washington, where they have their school crossing guards located. And St. Paul's has a couple of requests. The blue ones are their primary requests, and the crosswalks that get used the most by their students. So on across Payne Street on the north side of 2nd South Street, and then on across 2nd South Street along Payne Street on the school side is their top priority. They would like to have all 4 if possible, but they'll take the top 2. I forgot. Riverbend would like to have an enhanced crosswalk painted on South Minnesota Street behind their school. next to 14th South Street. And this is the one at Washington Learning Center. They would like them painted across 14th South Street on Franklin and Jefferson Streets. So any questions or concerns?
I've got a question on the, like St. Paul's and the middle school. Do they have crossing guards in the mornings or not?
The middle school does. I do not believe that St. Paul's does in the morning. I think they have theirs after school.
Yeah, I know they're after school, but.
Yeah, I don't think they have them in the mornings.
Are they there?
Any other questions?
Mr. Chair, I have a question for
Yeah.
Ms. Winters. Could you put up the River Bend
Yep.
Education, 14th South and South Minnesota? You have a Safe Routes to School group or committee. Do you have a representative from River Bend?
We do, yes.
When I look at that aerial photo, I think the number one physical component to safe walking out to school would be a sidewalk. And they don't have a sidewalk on the side of their school. Has there been any discussion about them installing one for that purpose?
They have not.
Okay. Is that something that the Safe Routes to School Committee would suggest they do?
That's a good question. I know that he has contacted you, so Doug Hazen is the principal up there. And he has concerns about his staff just trying to get to their parked cars along there. 'Cause they don't have a lot of kids that walk to school, but they do have a lot of staff. And that is a pretty busy street after school for their staff.
Well, I was just curious if that discussion came up, because I guess to me, if you're gonna walk to school, you need a sidewalk.
We haven't brought that. That's a good question, and we have not.
I have a question in reference to the Washington school ones. Both those intersections are four-way stops already.
Right. Yes.
So would that do, I'm just looking at cost factor and maintaining that type of, with the four-way stops already, well, the one is only a three-way, but it still stops.
We did an estimate to lay out a single crosswalk. To lay it out and paint it is $68.24 to do one
And how often does this have to be done?
every year.
And there's a request for 15 of them. And these
15 individual crosswalks?
crosswalks.
Okay.
Yeah. On the list. 17 if you count the other two that St. Paul's would like. But they would be happy with their primary choices.
Would the Washington Learning Center consider doing like 16th North in Franklin? Because that is not a four-way stop.
Right. And I don't know that, I know that this, the Safe Routes, the school resource officer and the superintendent are the ones that pick those two locations. I don't know the rationale behind it, but I know they do know that it's a controlled intersection at both. But it's just, I think it's to enhance that, make it safer.
Any other questions?
So I worked, it says like $1,023, $1,024 a year, Kurt,
Correct. Additional.
additional.
Additional. And that's yeah,
How
additional.
does that fit with you guys? How do you guys feel about that?
Something's going to have to give. Either our budget's going to have to increase or we're going to have to start hiring more part-time painters. We're, with the bike routes, we're pushed to the max right now. And Cheryl's, what are we up to? 488 Cheryl's, I believe, that have to be painted every year. And that's half of what they requested. So I don't know where that's going. But we're bursting at the seams when it comes to painting right now. So
I guess that would be up to the, who makes that decision? That's from the city council then?
That would be correct, yes.
Any other questions? Any other thoughts or questions or?
Mr. President, my thought would be for $1,000, if we can save one person from being hurt, maybe it's a very good investment.
From a safety standpoint, I agree.
Dave?
I'm-
Mr. Borger, will you please state your name and address?
Mr. Chair, members of the commission, I'm Dave Borkert, 405 South Broadway. I'm also a commander with the Nome Police Department. Just as far as the law enforcement side, anything that we can do that, these are a lot more visible and, just if we can do anything to improve safety, as far as a local law enforcement representative, I certainly encourage that. So that, when we had talked about this earlier, I had just said that, I would want to kind of share those comments. Again, they're brief comments, but we have, I think when you drive around town and stuff, and like I said, some of these intersections, we talked about that there's already controlled devices there, but, there is a cost involved, but at the same time, I think safety is extremely important, and especially around school crosswalks. And, we're trying to get people more active as far as going to school, walking to school, and as far as transportation. It's certainly, I think it's a very common sense approach, and I would certainly, want to share my thoughts that I would encourage you to support this.
Any more questions for Mr. Borgert
Thank you.
or Dave, whichever way? I want to go with Dave because I know people do eat
Dave
too
works
good.
great.
Huh?
Dave works great, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
I'll move we approve the recommendation to move forward with the crosswalks.
Mr. Chair, we always have people looking for volunteer things, especially like Boy Scout projects. Is this something to get some of these groups involved with?
Mr. Curry, that would fall into your ballpark.
I think that would be a pretty tough
Is it?
road to hoe. It's safety-wise.
Safety, yeah.
And
Painting
Liability
machine,
issues,
liability
we've kind of gone
issues
through this
and-
before on some other issues.
I'm involved with scouting, and it would
Would
not be,
good fit.
even fall under an Eagle project.
Oh, okay.
We got people out in the roadway and using
You've got vehicles going
complicated
through
equipment and.
city equipment and everything else. Okay? Do I hear a second to the motion that we approve it, push it?
I'll
push it
second
forward?
that.
We have a motion and a second to move this to the city council for their approval. Any further discussion?
Mr. Chair, a clarification on the recommendation is the
Recommendation would be to-
15 area, the 15 locations?
15 locations. I know Kurt's gonna kill me because he's gonna have to work to die.
It's not
Find
my
it
choice, so
somewhere.
just,
Find it somewhere. But that would be the recommendation. I have a second. Larry gave a second to it. Any further discussion?
And the request was for the longitudinal or the diagonal markings. You're just recommending that they be enhanced one way or another, and we'll let Mr. Curry decide.
I assume we were talking about the ladder markings? Yeah.
Ladder marking?
Thank you.
All right. Any further questions? Any further discussion? Otherwise, all those in favor of moving this forward to the city council to recommend that we have these 15 crossings painted and marked for the safety area. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. All right. Number 3. Receive the 2018 MnDOT Highway 1415 Gateway Project Overview. The detour routes and construction staging and the map is included.
Mr. Chair, as most of you are aware, the, what's termed as the MnDOT Highway 1415 Gateway Project is going to be cranking up here pretty shortly, probably next weekend. What it is the reconstruction of 7th North from Broadway and the highway across the river, 3 bridges, a new interchange out at 15 and 14. And there's a local detour that's going to take place that's takes us down by 20th South and Casat 37. And Assistant City Engineer Stadheim was going to go kind of through some of the overhead information with you. If you have any questions, just jump in.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Steve. Joe Stadham, Assistant City Engineer. First thing I want to show you is our construction update page on the City of New Ulm website. So if you go to the City of New Ulm website, it's right front and center. If you click on the read more, otherwise it's on the road construction update tab on the left-hand side, right there. Click read more, and then New Ulm Gateway 1415. We will also utilize this for our local projects as well for construction updates and other information. So we have a bunch of information listed on the page, the project contacts for MnDOT, and then we will also post weekly or bi-weekly updates so the public can stay up to date on the construction progress on this multi-year project that MnDOT is performing. One thing that MnDOT has put together is kind of a neat little video featuring our famous Herman the German. I'll run that quick, it's only a couple minutes.
Over the next 2 years, MnDOT is addressing intersection safety, aging bridges, poor pavement conditions, and occasional road flooding around New Ulm. In 2018, Highway 1415 from Broadway to County Road 21, including the bridge over Front Street, will be under construction. In 2019, MnDOT will replace the Minnesota River Bridge and build a new interchange at the high crash intersection of Highway 14, 15, and County Road 21. Highway 1415 and County Road 21 traffic will be detoured in 2 phases during this work. Yes, these detours will add extra minutes to your trip, anywhere from 5 to 15 minutes, but they are the next best route to safely move everyone who may be on the road. New Ulm will be open for business and festivals during construction. Here's how you get there starting in spring of 2018. Southbound Highway 15 traffic will take Highway 14 to County Road 37 to get to town. Major changes are coming to this gateway into New Ulm in 2018 and beyond. But you've got this because you're planning ahead now. Be ready. Know your route.
So that video addresses the first detour, which we will experience through 2018 until the spring of 2019. Find the right one. So as it showed in the video, Highway 15 coming from the north, from the Klossner area, the Y will still, what I call the Y, the intersection of 1415 will have 2 lanes of traffic, 12 feet wide, to allow that movement from 14 to 15 and 15 to 14. It's going to be tight. They're going to be putting advanced signage to slow that traffic down because it is going to be a tight maneuver there. But traffic will continue, and then the main route into town will be Casat 37, which turns into 20th South. And then from that point, traffic can go north or west on 14 or south on 15, depending where they're going. In spring of 2019, the detour gets longer. In Klossner, we'll pick up on Fort Road or on Highway 5, come down to 12, and then over by Cortland, and then back to town. So that'll add maybe a little bit more time. In 2019, that entire intersection will be closed for embankments and building of the new bridge over for Highway 15, which will be over Highway 14 at that point. This work is obviously done in phases. Phase 1 is going to be concentrating on the Front Street Bridge, which is scheduled to be closed on Tuesday, weather permitting. It was supposed to be closed this Tuesday, but the snowstorm kind of threw a curveball into the plan. So the Front Street Bridge will be demoed first, and then once that begins, there's some utility replacement work that'll happen underneath the bridge, and then also we have some old water main and sanitary sewer in 7th North that needs to be replaced as well. And the hope is that this segment in pink is open by the winter of 2018. So that means they're building the Front Street Bridge, the roundabout interchange, and the ramp in this area is scheduled to be open. Once the contractor begins the work from Broadway to German Street, they have 90 working days to complete that. So that includes all the streetscaping elements, utility replacement work, and like street lighting and other things that go along with that as well. And then obviously the bridge work and embankments and everything for the interchange will take a little bit longer than that. So at that same time, they will also be working on the Minnesota River Bridge. They're planning, as of right now, to build that bridge in 2 parts. One be the New Ulm half, and then the Nicollet County half. The New Ulm half is scheduled to begin this year as well, with the work finishing on the Nicollet County side in 2019. During both years, there will be a lot of embankment work in the yellow area. There's a bunch of soil corrections that has to take place. Fill has to be placed to bring the roadway up over the 100-year flood stage, and in the trail area as well. So anything you see with that kind of gray cross-hatching going along here, those are fill areas where they have to fill it in phases. To allow it to settle out. They have to put wick drains in and everything like that to help that settlement occur over time. So it's a long, tedious task to get that embankment work done. Some of the other features as part of this project include a bunch of streetscaping. It's really going to beautify that segment from Broadway into town on 7th North or Highway 1415. You can see some of the streetscaping elements. There'll be brick inlays and some of the ped ramps. The medians are going to have kind of a limestone curbing put in place. There's other like quarry stone blocks which will be placed in the medians as well to really give it a different feel in that corridor. Some native grass plantings, tree plantings, and as well as 2 monuments that'll be placed as you come into town before German Street. The bridges as well have a bunch of aesthetic treatments. The bridge facings, so on Front Street, you'll see those treatments on the abutments as you're traveling on our local streets as well. Continuing out over the river, maybe. There we go. There's bridge rail treatments that they're adding as well. There's kind of a profile view of what the Front Street Bridge will look like. The aesthetic treatments on the River Bridge will be very similar to what's on the Front Street Bridge. The trail that's being added to the segment will connect into our trail behind the old Shelter Products facility, and that will come up and head both ways in and out of town. And this going into town will connect into the sidewalk along 7th North, and then the trail will continue out to the new interchange, and there's a nice interpretive center that will be placed out near the roundabouts as well. Kind of a learning area with I think it's going to be prairie-focused grasses and stuff like that. That's what the plan is for that interpretive center. The interchanges will look similar to what is over in Nicollet, if you've been in Nicollet on those interchanges, except ours are reversed. Our roundabouts will be down below and the bridge will be up above. Any questions on the aesthetics or the appeal of the project or anything like that?
I have a question.
Yep.
Is there anything going to be done on Minnesota Street as Minnesota Street approaches 37 and into the Hy-Vee parking lot?
There is. You're one step ahead of me, Mr. Hunstead. If we don't have any questions on this, I'll jump to that part of the detour route.
Okay.
Ron, you can switch to the document camera, please. Thank you. So I think we are all well aware of I think we're all pretty well aware of the crash history and the current unsafe environment that is at the intersection of Minnesota Street, 20th South, and the Hy-Vee access. That's been brought up in our pre-planning stages. We had a special meeting with law enforcement, ambulance services, and fire, just as emergency management preparedness meeting that was conducted by Mathewitz Construction, who's the prime contractor on this job. This specific location was the #1 concern of law enforcement. So this original plan was revisited with the MnDOT District 7 traffic engineer, Scott Thompson, and the project management staff for this project. After review of the location and they observed traffic in that area for a little bit, it was decided that instead of the plastic tube delineators, similar to what was on Highway 14 between Mankato and Nicollet back before the 4-lane expansion, they are scrapping that idea and using a temporary barrier, kind of a jersey barrier, concrete barrier, that will extend that entire segment. So where you see the dotted line or the little circles for the barrels, those will be replaced with that solid red line.
Maybe point out the driveway access, Joe, and that'll be down the center median, so there'll be it'll be a right turn only out of the Hy-Vee store.
Yep. So here's Hy-Vee. There will be delineators set up there for right turn only.
Okay.
Minnesota Street will also be a right turn only, so it'll only be right in, right out onto Minnesota Street and into Hy-Vee. Being that this detour is going to be up for over 2 years, it was decided for maintenance purposes and for safety, this was the best option. That way we don't have to have an incident before we do something more permanent like this. Again, that was kind of the #1 concern, at least of our local law enforcement officers.
We're expecting the traffic to double on that detour from the existing conditions, so we had some concerns with regard to that location.
Yeah, as it sits now with the amount of traffic on there, it's a concern. So most certainly it's going to be worse.
The only other concern that I would have there is that, this is supposedly all going to take place on, say, next week.
Tuesday, yep.
Yeah, and all of a sudden you're going to have all this traffic coming in there.
Yep.
And it might have been a good idea to start it sooner so that the local people understand that and know what to do in that particular intersection.
That was kind of the hope until we got the snow. But that kind of now everything's kind of accelerated, so the detours.
It'll be congested there for a while.
It will, yep. Whenever a detour of this magnitude's put into effect, the first couple weeks are going to be the worst. But once people find their new route,
Yep.
and we'll be fine. But getting through those first
It'll
couple
take
weeks.
Some learning.
Yep,
Yeah.
most certainly.
Good.
I have a question. Is law enforcement or the city looking at the speed limits on Broadway with these changes?
The city, the speed limits on Broadway are controlled by MnDOT, so we really have no say. I'm sure we'll have plenty of, I know the State Patrol is going to make its presence felt, at least in the first couple of days, as well as I'm sure our local cops and sheriff deputies will be patrolling the area as well.
Mr. Chair, the speed limits on the state highway local roads as well, are controlled by state statute, so we can't lower them without a speed study, and frankly, what you're going to find out is that it would be increased. That happened on the north end recently, so I'm not sure what question you're asking, but they're not going to be lowered.
The amount of traffic that's going to be going and with the multiple speeds through the area coming at 40 and then dropping down.
Yeah, I come to work in the morning and I go 30 miles an hour and people are passing me at 50, so you just have to be careful what you ask for.
Is this going to have any, with Front Street? Are we going to be getting any extra traffic coming down on Front Street or not?
Well, I'm sure the traveling public are gonna find alternate routes to use, so I'm sure there'll be, other streets will see an increase, I'm sure, for people that don't wanna be on Broadway with the extra traffic. I guess we can only wait and see what happens.
Front Street is a state aid route designed for truck traffic. We'll get some of that truck traffic from, the shelter products area, the Dietrich facilities, Schugle. They'll have to go
They'll be on
someplace.
Valley in front.
Valley or front, and maybe go to the north, so.
Yeah, and one thing to add, that Front Street will be open for the majority of the time. There will be times when they flag it shut while they're demoing the bridge, but they expect it to be open the vast majority of the time without any hard closures. That was a concern of the line ambulance service, being that they're right there at the project limits.
Yeah. Any other questions? Anybody? Any other questions about it?
Thank you, Mr. Chair and Commissioners.
Thank you for doing the update for us. It helps us to see more what's going to happen.
It looks like it'll be nice when it's done.
Yes, it'll be a long 2 years, but it's going to look gorgeous when it's done.
There's going to be people complaining because they're on State Street or whatever, like they were last time, when they were running around on the other streets and stuff. It will happen. I realize that. Okay, anything else on that? Otherwise, I would like to, I have people that had asked questions about taking the no parking signs down on Payne Street. Yeah, Payne Street, yeah, get my streets right. Give us a little over, we may not be able to act because I didn't get it on the agenda, but at least give us your presentation.
Jim Drutsky. I live at 215 South Payne Street, and my neighbor lives at 209 South Payne Street. We're on the east side of Payne Street, across from, basically, there's a lot of St. Paul's property. Everything but one house on the opposite side of the street is owned by St. Paul's. And then Jefferson School is down about a block. Well, it starts right across the street. There's that new roadway, and I'm sorry I don't have any pictures. I had it on my phone, and I left my phone at home. So, but the question is, if there are some signs that are posted for no parking, and those no parking signs went up to leave room for busing, when busing used to be the only place for buses to park at 3 o'clock or 7:30 in the morning to drop students off. And with the new construction between the middle school and Jefferson, and with the new roadway between St. Paul's and Jefferson, all the busing excluded of St. Paul's. St. Paul's still has their busing along their front, along Payne Street. But down on our block and further, there really isn't any busing anymore. Maybe way down, there might be an MVL bus that picks up someplace in there. But the question is, a lot of the Jefferson teachers park on our side of the street because there's no parking on the opposite side of the street. They don't like to park in their parking lot because it's too far away from where they're teaching. So they park in front of ours. And one of the pictures that I had, and I believe when Chairman Fritchie came to my house, the walkway out to the street was blocked by a car, and lately I've had some back and medical issues that I've had to have doctor appointments, and I can't get out to my street unless my wife goes out and parks out about 7 o'clock in the morning to make sure nobody else parks out there. but it would be convenient if people would not park on our side of the street, and they were able to park on the opposite side of the street. And since there are all but one piece of property is basically vacant, I don't think that would cause anybody on the opposite side of the street a problem to have a few people park in front of their property. I don't know if that's clear enough, but I can answer any questions.
I know there are 2 no parking signs, one basically on each end of the block.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
Mr. Dresky, you say they're parking you in? Don't you have you have no access to the street, is what you're saying?
That's correct.
It seems, good.
I don't understand why, I know I should go up to the mic, but why them teachers can park in the school parking lot? Why do they have to park on our block? I mean, the school district put $100 and some thousand into that parking lot, and it sits over there. Well, the response I got from a lot of people, and I've been to the police department, I've been to the superintendent, and he says, well, they don't have to walk so far if you park in front of your house. Well, when they redid the street in front of my house, I had to pay $3,000 assessment. And I can't even park in front of my house for 9 months out of the year, unless I get up at 7 o'clock in the morning and drive my truck and my car out in front and park in front of my place. Now that's stupid.
Have you had a conversation with the administration at the school?
I talked to
Gary Hess.
Bertrand, and he says, well, we'd like to get along with our family, but nothing happens.
I work at the medical center, and there's that kind of similar issue on 5th North where employees were parking on the opposite side of the street or in front of people's houses on West and Linden Street, and it's highly encouraged that employees not park in front of those neighbors' houses, and the medical center wants to be neighborly. Now, whether that happens all the time, I don't know.
I've lived there 50 years, and before they put that addition on with those new rooms on Jefferson, we never had that problem. Even with the temporary ones there, they didn't park there. But now, all of a sudden, they're all parking there. Up 3rd South Street, they're on there. That's why if we could get those signs taken out on that one block, it would help alleviate that somewhat. But the real problem is they should be parking in their parking lot.
It's not an issue like it used to be because the kids aren't driving to school
Right,
there.
exactly. There's no kids down there that drive cars. And I've gone through that parking lot many times, and there's a lot of parking spots in there.
So they park there in order to get access to the school quicker,
Well, so it's closer, so they don't have to
get
walk
it
so far.
closer.
I know we can't act on this tonight, but I agree with you that why do we have no parking on the opposite side of the street from you? There are no buses there. There's not supposed to be dropping off kids there. They're not supposed to be doing anything. It's just that those signs have been there forever and ever when it was a
The
drop-off
only
zone.
thing is that in the afternoon, a lot of the parents park along that side to pick up kids. You know, they come walking from the school down there. But if the teachers were parked there, they wouldn't be able to do that. And they probably would park in front of our house, but it would only be for a little while, you know, pick their kids up and they're gone. When them teachers park there, it's all day long. I don't know.
Well, first of all, I would think common sense would tell you not to park in somebody's driveway.
Well, there are no
Their driveways are in the
They were
alley.
both parked shut. Kurt?
Yeah, your driveways are in the alley, correct?
Correct. There are
So
no.
they're not blocking driveway, they're just blocking their sidewalk
Sidewalk.
to the street?
To the street, sidewalk to the
You couldn't
street.
get out with your car.
No, sidewalk
Blocked in the street.
on the street, the sidewalk coming to the street.
I know at one time I had to have Heartland Bus come and pick me up and take me to the medical clinic. And if there's a car parked in front of mine, well, then I'd have to go try to find another access to get out. appreciate your consideration of this, Chairman Ritchie and the rest
Thank
of
you.
the board. Thank you.
Thanks, Tim.
Mr. Kaler, will you get this on the next agenda then?
For the Safety Commission, yes, certainly, Mr. Chair. I guess my only comment would be Payne Street has been a problem for many, many years, and the Safety Commission councils before you have tried many different options, and buses have been rerouted and changed in parking. So I don't think there's a magic pill that's going to make things safe down there, so whatever you have an opportunity to go maybe audit the area, I would suggest you do, and think about the long-term effects of what may change. And these two gentlemen have a good point. They see parking that maybe shouldn't be going on, but at the same time, there's a lot of congestion down there, so we need to keep our minds about what's going to happen if we change things.
Thank you for your presentation. Now we got something to think about till next month. Is there any other new business that's not on the agenda? All right. The next meeting will be the first Thursday in May,
May 3rd.
May 3rd. Everybody write it down so you remember it.
But it won't be at noon, right?
No.
It says noon on here, so.
It will be at 5 o'clock.
It does say noon.
It does say noon. I never looked.
It was
I
a
never
bad
looked for that. I just assumed
Bad
it
day.
Oh, yeah, it does say noon.
I think when I started.
does.
It was.
Well, I prefer noon.
Well, I would prefer.
I was trying to help you along.
Would it make more, question for you, Steve, would it be better access to the room here if we come at 4:30 rather than 5?
Jefferson
Um,
and Palm.
Yeah.
We run into
There's a airport
It's at the tree.
the tree
Tree
committee.
commission starts at 4, so that may be,
Okay, then we better stay at 5
Problem.
o'clock then.
I thought he
Yeah.
was, I thought he was.
All right.
You know, Payne Street, that he couldn't get out this way, but.
Yes, there was.
Everybody done?
That's been quite a while since we've been there.
Next safety commission meeting will be May 3rd, 5 PM in the chambers that we are presently in. Adjourned.
thank you.